So
your Facebook profile.
show me where the feed's at.
We're live.
We are. That's so good.
No, we are live now.
We're live at the moment.
Yeah, we're live at the moment.
So we're not going to be live. We're actually live at the moment. Okay, perfect. My name is Dr. Brent Turvey. I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Dr. Aurelio Coronado Phd. We are in Aguas Calientes at the Behavioral Science Lab.
And you're looking good.
No, apparently, I have committed the cardinal sin.
We were doing tests, and the first thing he says, I've been spending the whole afternoon doing these intros that you will see.
Yes.
I'm very proud of
He's
this.
doing really good.
But what's important, he looks good.
Well, I want to
He's
say
seeing himself in the cell phone. by the way.
I'm looking at it. I can't believe how good it is. Okay, so
what is this? What are we doing?
So what we're doing is this. Aurelio and I committed to writing a textbook called Criminal Psychology about 2 years ago. And we've started working on it in earnest in the last 8 months or so.
Yes. So the idea is to talk about some ideas we have about the book.
Yeah.
And also, obviously, to connect it to things that are happening in the pop culture and in criminal justice news, of course.
That's right, but not in the way that you think. It's not like candy store-friendly criminal psychology like you see in movies and on television. It's more about advanced concepts. There are going to be things we talk about in this podcast that you should immediately want to go look up on your own.
Yes. We have people from Colombia connected right now, so say hi to Colombia.
I love my good friends and colleagues in Colombia. The students are very serious. The politics are very real, and the issues are incredibly relevant to what we're doing.
So this podcast is about talking about some concept that we were trying to develop, and also to show some recommendations. At the end, we're gonna recommend some documentaries, books, and stuff like that.
But there's something else, and that is that one of the things that Aurelio and I have benefited a lot from our time during the pandemic because of the fact that what we do a lot of is talk. We talk amongst ourselves. We talk with our colleagues, Valeria Balthazar, Michael McGrath, people with the IFC, people with the Consejo. We're constantly talking to get better. And what we realized is it's in those conversations where we find weaknesses in the things that we think and also strengths in the things that we think. So we just thought this is a great way to dedicate time to this subject so we can actually get smarter.
Yes.
We're not sitting here going, okay, we're going to tell you the truth because we figured it. No, we haven't figured anything out. I want to make that very clear.
Basically what we want is an open conversation with you guys. And this is the moment when we are going to do the intro. So they know the official intro.
Can I tell you something? Somebody dedicated a lot of creative energy this afternoon to making this intro. I couldn't have done it myself because I'm more of a...
This is not about you. This is about the intro.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Oh, shit.
Let's do it. This is the intro. That was the intro.
That was so good. let me tell you how it made me feel.
Okay. So Brent Turvey is a forensic scientist
and criminologist.
And what's your specialty?
My specialty tends to be femicide and what I've come to regard as pre-femicidal behavior, like domestic violence, sexual assault, serial rape, serial homicide. But sexual homicide in specific, and all those things leading up to it and tangential to it. Those tend to be the cases that I get called to work on.
Okay, so I'm a forensic psychologist, and I work in contextual evidence, and I work in a psychosocial aspect of victimizations and, of course, crime. And what we want to talk today is, what do you want to talk today?
I can't talk about it.
Yeah, we see a documentary last week about Britney Spears.
Last night.
Yeah, last night.
It seems like a week ago because we've emotionally changed so much by it.
Yeah.
That it actually, I'm a different person.
Yeah, it was an intense experience. And
we lived through it, though.
There's been a lot of conversations about that documentary. You can find that in Hulu. It's a documentary that has been produced by the New York Times.
Yeah.
And
a series of documentary programs. Hers is one of the stories.
Yeah, and so he's been creating a lot of conversations about how we perceive Britney Spears, how media treat Britney Spears, and especially what's going on legally with her.
Well, not just that, but turning a person into a business, into a commodity that gets bought and sold, and at the beginning by her parents, essentially by her family.
Yes,
it's been a great revelation. But I like what you were talking about before. It's how they're treated in media. And one of the most interesting things that happened is the moment that this documentary came out, Aurelio and I started talking about Craig Ferguson, because Craig Ferguson, he's a Scottish talk show host in America who resigned after about 11 years of doing a talk show on CBS. He's one of the few guys who been through some really big trauma in his life, some addiction problems, and he was making fun of. Yes. And he realized, he goes, you know what? I can't actually, and he did this years ago, not recently. He did it when he didn't have to. And that is, he came out and said, you know what? These are cheap jokes. They're hurting people. And I need to be more sensitive about how I talk about other people's trauma and pain.
Yes.
It was one of the most.
Yeah. And if you're not aware of who Britney Spears is, well, man, we cannot do much for you.
We can't help you.
Because Britney, she's very big right now.
Famous when she was a child.
Yeah.
And there was her entire life has been dissected by the media in terms of, oh, you're not sexual enough because this is what sells, but you're too sexual for this. And then when she finally got to the right age, she spent so much time curating, the media had spent so much time curating this innocent version of herself that when she exploded with her own individuality and what could be perceived as sexuality, it was way too uncomfortable for the mainstream. Much like Miley Cyrus doing nudes.
Yes.
I guess if we're looking for an analogy. Except for Miley Cyrus is much more comfortable with herself and puts her middle fingers up a lot, which Britney Spears did not.
Yes, and also because he was different. Now Miley Cyrus has the social network. He has her own media to communicate with their fans. And Britney Spears depends on this phenomenon, paparazzis and these tabloids who use their image to make money.
That's right.
Right? So there were some kind of exploitations around that figure.
But not just exploitation, but basically commercializing this person, turning them into a product.
Yeah.
And you could say that that's exploitation, but I mean like the total person was turned into this thing that everyone, parents, media corporations, newspaper magazines, paparazzi, they're all trying to package and sell an image and trying to get a photo that either despies expectations or invades just enough privacy to make her look hypocritical, to create controversy, to create, in modern language, what we would call clicks or interest.
Yeah, and maybe you can remember what was your position around the subject of Britney Spears, but I remember back in the time, I didn't have any sympathy for her. I mean, I didn't think that she was having a hard time or thinking that what's going on in the media was bad, because I was not paying enough attention to Britney Spears, because I used to believe, because I didn't know the context, that this whole thing was a show, when she was a willing participant, you know?
And that she had people around her that would obviously protect her if anything bad would happen. And it wasn't until I did an interview about the Michael Jackson controversy about 12 years ago. And they asked me, well, what advice would you give to Michael Jackson because of all the stuff he'd been arrested, he was going on trial. And I said, look, he has the worst handlers on the face of the planet. He has people around him who are not telling him no.
Yes.
And what I didn't realize even then is that when you are this famous and this wealthy and this have this much power and influence over other people, you live in a bubble. And sometimes that bubble is created by the people who are controlling you. And sometimes that's a bubble you create yourself by not listening to other people or surrounding yourself with yes men. So these are all problems that create a situation where this person can have either whatever they want or they are completely controlled and get nothing that they want.
Yeah, and if you check this case using gender perspective, of course, you will start seeing stuff that is very embarrassing to see right now.
Exactly.
Because I'm
the sexualization of a child.
I'm talking about me.
Yeah.
No, how they treated the misogynist part in the interview. Things that I see at the moment, like there were these, I don't know, European interviewer who was asking about her breast, and she was like 20 or something, and then he asked him about the virginity, because for some reason there was some obsession in the United States at the early 2000s about virginity. Remember that?
That's still, by the way, that hasn't gone away. Just ask Scarlett Johansson. Every time she would go on tour for the Avengers or anything, they'd be asking her about her hair.
I will ask you Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, can you text her?
Remember?
I'm friends with Colin Jost, so it's not a problem for me. Let me just
but it's very embarrassing that even this video of a guy who was crying at the time saying, "Leave Britney Spears alone." Remember that?
Yep.
And I made fun of the guy.
Oh, there were so many parodies of him.
Yeah, but he was right. He was saying something because he cares about Britney Spears, and he was following very closely the situation. But I think everybody else were just not putting any humanity on this subject, right?
So it's not just the commercialization of the person, but it's packaging it in a way to us so that we see them as a product, not a human being.
Yes.
And we treat them like a product, not a human being. And now that we have the internet and social media, we treat everybody like they're a product. You know what I'm thinking about right now? Greta Thunberg.
Yeah, the teenager activist for environment.
And what was the biggest argument by the right was that, she's obviously been prepackaged and has handlers, and she's all about making money, and she's going to get $1 million book deal, and blah, 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 blah. It's just as phony as the day is long. Assuming that this child had essentially adult motives for doing what she was doing.
Well, basically, this is a culture related to, let's call it adultocentrism. Like, we always think that childs are not, or teenagers are not a full developed person, and we can exploit them, basically. Or we can join to a party or make fun of someone because it's entertaining. And of course, if you see it at distance, you can see this white rich girl from the United States, and you say, well, she has everything. Of course, if Lena says that Greta is just another puppet from the left, well, Greta is a teenager.
Yeah,
maybe she's a puppet, but he's not more than a puppet than me or
me.
Or maybe Brent is
I'm a huge puppet.
So, but what's the subject of the documentary Britney Spears is about his legal status. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Okay, so if a person is determined to not be fit to make their own decisions with their own money and their own property and their own business interests, like they might lose all that or be easily defrauded or deceived, and that's a key element of it, they can enter what's called a conservatorship, which is you have a responsible party who is mentally there but also has their best interests in mind, take control of their business decisions and finances. That sounds reasonable, and it's usually applied to very old people who maybe have dementia, who might, if they get a phone call, just start sending money to Nigeria. You know what I mean? That's what it's meant to protect. It has almost never been applied to a child actor because no children usually don't make this amount of money. So the concern was that she had become mentally ill and mentally unstable to the point where she couldn't manage her own finances. But at the same time, she's treated as though she's okay for performing and doing the work that she's told to do. So essentially, it creates a situation where you have somebody in power over her. She makes no money for the work that she does, but she's required to perform. That's called slavery. It's actually a form of slavery. So this legal construct was used in a very narrow and unique way to control her assets and finances. And at one point, the people doing it actually admit, at this point, we're really this conservatorship is about managing not her as a person, but her as a business. And that's what's the most important thing. And once you read that chilling sort of language being used about another human being, you realize how far we've strayed from what the intent of a conservatorship is.
Yeah, and I think it's important to see this through the lens of psychosocial disability, because obviously the idea is that she has some kind of mentally illness, or some kind of disability related to her skills to make decisions, so the reason by her own fortune, right?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Yeah. And the reason we believe that is because of the way we are being essentially gaslit by the media. They give us images and videos that are heavily curated to create an image that they want, to create a narrative that they're trying to sell that is without context, that doesn't show the whole story, that doesn't show this is just a person reacting to their environment.
Yes.
Like, oh, look what she's doing with the kid on her lap. She's got a kid on her lap. Okay, well, by itself, that's pretty fucking bad, except for this is right after Princess Diana has been killed by the paparazzi and paparazzi surrounding her car, and that's exactly what goes on with Britney Spears. She can't go to the store and go get a chai latte like everybody else without being mobbed by the media. And they get right up in her car, and she's got her kid with her. So what is she supposed to do? Needs to make a hasty exit. She's afraid for her life, afraid for her kid's life, so she drives away. Doesn't take the time to secure the kid the way she should have, and that becomes a story instead of the fact that she's being stalked and harassed by these people who are trying to make money off of her.
So basically, they're using the card of mental illness, and this is a very interesting subject when you talk about human rights and victimization, because mental illness is we're not saying that Britney Spears has mental illness, or maybe she has it. It's not a problem.
No,
I mean, or maybe she has some type of vulnerability, and then this harassment and these stresses years and all the stuff that happened to her create this basically disability. But the important part is, can we take away the right to make decision of their own life to a person? Is that a right we can have? There's a big discussion in the international law about that.
Well, one of the other cases I'm thinking about is Anna Nicole Smith, because the real question is, did her husband act in sound mind and capacity when he married her and left his fortune to her?
Yeah.
And that was the same kind of fight. Can people make their own decisions? And can you take away their right to make their own decisions? What's the line?
Yeah.
When does it cross? So before you go on, I would like you to do me a favor and define psychosocial for the group, because I think that's a word that we use, but I don't think it's a word that all of us understand. And you have really given me a lot of education on this issue, so I appreciate it. So could you tell me?
That means we have another section right now.
Oh, fuck. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again because it's still good.
Yeah, what's the
psychosocial disability?
What is
this? Well, basically, psychosocial disability is a concept that is being used for the last 30 or 40 years, and is related to the UN Accords related to disability. Basically, the idea is that disability is not only a subject that the person has, like schizophrenia or any cognitive problems, or even let's talk about disability in terms of using a wheelchair. But it's also a product of the environment. You know what I mean? So if the disability, if you need to use glasses for seeing better, if you don't have access to glasses, that will become a disability.
That's a huge problem. We're readers right now. It's a big problem.
But if you have the glasses, disability is almost gone. So that's the same concept to any disability. If she has some kind of disability related to mental illness, that's what we call psychosocial disability. Let's talk about, for instance, schizophrenia. I have a lot of cases with people with that, let's call it that disease or condition.
Yeah.
But they're always trying to get rid of their rights. People, they're trying to, to take legal control of these people because it's crazy or doesn't understand the world or whatever. But this is very important. If you see through the lens of the human rights, you will understand that people who has disabilities needs special rights, more rights,
protection. Let's call them protections,
nor less rights.
Yeah, they don't need to have things taken away from them.
Yeah,
they need to be given a ramp so they can get to the door.
Yes,
they need to be given a special audio access to the ATM so they can take out money. They don't need less; they need more. That's exactly right. And it's not that much more. It's not like a lot. It's just the things that we take for granted. One of the things that's really frustrating to me is when somebody has that kind of limitation, and they either they can't admit it, or they have to hide it, or they have to do workarounds constantly because the people that they live with, the people who supposedly love them the most, don't believe that they have a real limitation. You're faking it. Or come on, just nut up. Be stronger. Stop being a baby.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Stop acting like that. As though their vulnerability, their disability is a choice.
Yes.
So that's part of it.
So the important part is that in cases like this, I've been having consultation. I've had a consultation in several cases around dementia, schizophrenia,
right.
and basically related to getting old.
Right.
So if you watch the international law, this figure about what you call it, conservatorship, is not there, because basically it's a violation of human rights.
Right.
The idea is not to take away the ability of people to make decisions, is to help them to make decisions.
And to me, that's what a conservatorship is. It's somebody who's there who has the best interest in mind of the person to help them make good decisions for them. But what happens invariably is the conservator makes decisions that help them and line their own pockets. Yes. They wind up being the one that defrauds. The conservator is the one that winds up defrauding the person. There's a new movie on Netflix that just came out that's about this very issue with elderly people. It's called, I can't remember what it's called, but I'll look it up.
Like Lina saying, he's talking about the spectrum of autism. Exactly. Yes. Actually, one of the major cases in Mexico is related to Asperger syndrome. Yeah. It's this guy who was, he's been in a legal battle because their father and their mother wants to take away his right to make decision. And he go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court failed in favor of him, basically telling him, no, if you have autism or you have schizophrenia, that doesn't mean that somebody else can take over in your life. You basically need more a network of people who can take care of you and help it. But that's not that doesn't stop there. If you think in the Britney Spears case, you need to understand there's the need of social change too, and how we treat women in media, how we talk about these issues, because this is also part of education. Basically, there's some subject that can create the problem with psychosocial problems. Basically, is the physical barriers. Do we have the proper signs? Do we have the proper, like, if you're using like wheelchairs, you have the signs, or you need like you need to read something and you're blind. You know, that's a physical barrier that can be approached with structural changes.
And you and I approach this problem like it's a problem we want to solve it. There's another dimension to this, which is that there are people who have a personal belief that people with disabilities or people with these kind of vulnerabilities need to be removed from the public discourse, removed from the public realm.
Yeah.
That they should be hidden inside of mental facilities. That's why parents of gay children love the idea of re-education camps. They love the idea of going to have them reprogrammed because it's out of sight, it's out of mind, and it absolutely plays into this narrative of mental illness is a disease. It's disgusting, and we can cure you of whatever. And if that can't be done, well, then you don't really need access to this anyway. We should do things to exclude you. There are people who believe that. You and I, we do not believe that. We come from a different set of goals, and victory looks very inclusive to us.
Well,
we have to acknowledge
that's a lie. That's a lie. I start understanding that when I start reading about it, because obviously I have my own prejudice about disability and obviously about machismo and all stuff like that. When I see the documentary, and I'm older now, I can see for different languages. But of course, we all have. Yes. We don't educate ourselves about.
We don't even have the language to talk about.
No, of course. Why?
We lack the language.
This is not about being smart. It's about being ignorant and to be in a culture that basically normalize this type of behavior.
Yeah.
So one thing is the physical barrier, but the other one is you're saying is education and attitude. Yeah. We need to educate ourselves better. Of course, the government needs to do it and include that in how we teach our kids to treat the other ones.
And we don't even have the tools to have the conversation ourselves. So we get angry when someone else tries to do it for us, as though they're going to do it wrong when we're not doing it at all.
Yes.
We don't have the language to talk about it yet. That's
so there's a lot of prejudice against people in the spectrum, autism, Asperger, of course, psychosocial disabilities like schizophrenia is one of the most is one of the biggest problems. There's a lot of like the portrayed in media of people with schizophrenia.
Oh yeah.
Or like they're killers.
Yeah, mental illness is sold to us, packaged to us as violence.
Yeah.
Violence is a form of mental illness.
Yeah. That's why some of our colleagues, they always want to talk about psychopathology when they're talking about killers.
Talk about psychopaths.
Because the media, the movies and the series show that if you have a mental illness, you will become a killer. You'll
stop caring about what's real and the value of life.
Yeah, so that's the important part. Like, we don't know enough about psychosocial disabilities. And instead of calling mental illness, if we start calling psychosocial disability, that will start included in the conversation, the context. The context, coming back to Britney Spears, it was very weird. You know what I mean?
But isn't it interesting? I think we remarked on this, despite our inebriated state. We remarked on the fact that we lacked the ability to see her context, how much time, energy, and effort is spent by people who are lying to control the narrative of the context by virtue of things like, non-disclosure agreements. Yes, you were sexually assaulted or sexually coerced or sexually abused somehow in this employment environment, but there's an NDA here, here's $1 million. If you say anything about it, you're destroyed. So that the actual context is hidden from the world, and all we see is the behavior that gets photographed.
And that's other thing that happened this week. Australia just finalized a law that gives the ability of the victims to talk about their sexual abuse because it was forbidden.
Exactly.
Right? Why?
Oh my God! In Australia, here's the reason why. Up until 2005, there were defamation laws in Australia that said this: if you say something negative about another person and it harms them, then you are guilty of slander or libel. Right?
Yes.
Well, this was especially true, especially damaging if the libel or if the statement is true.
Yes.
So the truth is not a defense to libel or slander until 2005. But the attitudes and beliefs around doctors and academics and lawyers and people who have a lot to protect because they're doing a lot of shitty behavior, their attitude and belief was, if it's true, you definitely can't say it because it'll harm the reputation. You can be sued. So the idea of even talking the truth about your clients and colleagues who are doing terrible things, that has been penalized for so long. It's been part of the law until 2005. The reason I found this out is because I was talking about forensic fraud on campus by one of the instructors who had lied about getting the program accredited by ASCLD, which isn't a thing. And so I pointed this out, and they told me I had to stop talking about it because it was a true thing that harmed the reputation of her and the university. Therefore, it was libel and slander. I had to go get the 2005 law and plunk it down on the actual desk of the president of the university to explain to him that I'm not committing any crimes anymore. He goes, well, this is historically how it's been, and we're going to keep those traditions. And I said, well, then you're violating the law.
Yes.
You're doing what you were just accusing me of doing 30 seconds ago.
So it's like Lina Valentin-Spelman is saying, like, basically there is a control of the discourse around some subjects, especially the subjects that is, they are not around what we call the mainstream. The mainstream is the heterosexuality and non-disability and colonial beauty and, all those things.
Well, I'll give it to you one better.
That's what you see in yourself, colonial beauty. You confuse being white to be handsome.
I'm just thinking about
I see that in
the
you a lot.
T-shirt that I'm wearing. It's
no. Come on.
I have colonial beauty. I do not have.
He's from Ireland.
That's totally true.
Scottish.
I'm Scottish.
Scottish? What are you doing?
Scottish.
My
people are from Scotland. Where white. Where white meant really white.
Yeah.
and
so they believe they're handsome.
Racism meant prejudice.
Yeah, because remember that guy who used to beat women, this Sean Connery guy?
Yeah.
And you were like the handsome man ever.
It was so. The gentleman. Well, yes, he beats women every once in a while, but that's okay. I'm like, what the fuck? When I learned that, I was destroyed.
So we want to recommend everybody to see the Britney Spears documentary.
Yes,
especially people who are interested in basically in gender perspective, psychosocial disability. Because obviously, this type of subject, when we announced that we're going to talk about this, it was like, oh, you talk about Britney Spears, seems shallow, right?
Yeah, no.
Why? Why it will be shallow to talk about Britney Spears? That was the problem. We don't see as
a person,
a human.
We're actually going to talk to her
and
about
of course, people who are suffering more than Britney rich white woman Spears. But she's a representation of a culture we have about consuming basically women.
And more
for
importantly,
entertainment.
if she is not protected, the person with the most agency, the most money, the most wealth, the most privilege, if she's not protected, there's no chance in hell that anybody in a different social class is protected.
Yes.
The movie that I was talking about on Netflix is called I Care a Lot.
Yes, Lina was saying the same.
Yeah, it's brilliantly done, and it's so entertaining, but it's based on real events.
Okay, so we want to recommend you to see this documentary so we can open a conversation. Obviously, there's other conversation to have about this documentary,
Yes.
about the misogynistic way that interviewers treated him.
Oh my God!
And how it's gonna become. She was like a joke for 10 years.
Yeah.
About when she go bald and everything she does.
But it's not just that. It was the Diane Sawyer interview that clinched it, because Diane Sawyer has been an interviewer of these female celebrities for so long. There's a whole trend now of re-examining Diane Sawyer's interviews to see what exactly was her goal. She was talking about virginity, sex, size of boobs, types of clothing, very male-oriented, male-dominated, very misogynistic topics that have nothing to do with the person sitting in front of them, but all about how we see that person and how we want them to be packaged in a way that makes them consumable by us.
Yes.
It's very disturbing to watch those interviews looking back.
So Claudia Bermúdez is saying, so true, the boundaries between helping them to make decisions and to annihilate their elemental human rights are so easy to break. Because the idea of they are sick people, even though they're some health professionals. That's very true, Claudia. And I want to say hello to Claudia. And that's the truth. The problem is us, the psychologists, because we don't have enough training in human rights perspective. We have a lot of training in psychopathology, and we think our superpower is to say who has what, but our superpower used to be to understand the people and the context, and to humanize and make more human the justice system, not just to label people and say, oh, it's autistic or it's whatever.
I think that the problem with forensic psychology, as far as I can see it, has been too infected by criminology.
Yes, that's true, especially in the concept of the violent mental disease person, right? Yeah. So we recommend to watch that documentary, and we want to show another thing that was very interesting for us. It was about gaslighting.
Oh yeah, very interesting.
But I have an intro for that.
Let's hear it.
Let me see. I have an intro. Yes, I have an intro.
Movies. Again.
Do it again. It's so funny, man.
That sounds exactly like the opening title theme to the cartoon Home Movies, which was brilliant, by the way.
Yes.
With Dr. Katz.
Yes, sounds exactly the same.
Well, close. Not exactly.
So we have other stuff. We want to talk about basically an article we read because we were having a case.
So I want to talk about the process real quick here. You and I both do independent of each other.
Yeah.
When we come up with it, when we have a concept that we don't understand fully.
Lina likes my intro. Thank you, Lina.
Well, Lina seems a little partial to just about everything you do, and I'm concerned about it at this point.
It's not about you. We're talking about the intro. How
you
you manage to do the intro. Okay. This is about Brent now. We're talking about the intro.
Can we?
So easy, man.
Why are we?
It's so easy.
We never
so
left.
easy
We
to
never
go.
Left.
We want to talk about this subject. This is
we read. When we don't understand something, we read up.
Yeah, and we find this article about Paige L. Sweet. She's a sociologist.
That's right.
And she wrote a very good document talk about gaslighting as a sociological concept. And we were having a case, and we're having problems to understand why the victim was not aware of the violence that it was around.
The argument is they could have just left, right? That's the argument.
That's always the argument.
Just left. Why didn't they leave?
Why
didn't they report the crime as a crime?
Yeah.
Why when they called the police, they wouldn't press charges? Well, obviously they're not serious and they're making everything up. That's literally the logic the police use to unfound cases.
Yeah. So so what we trying to explain to the judge is that there's a way to actually transform or manipulate reality of people.
Yes.
And I was started to do some research about this gaslighting concept. Of course, it's a pop culture concept at first.
At first, but that's a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, the origin is a movie back in the 60s about that. So basically, they start using that in a pop culture first, and then some academic papers about what's gaslighting. Can you explain what gaslighting is?
Yes, yeah, it's very uncomplicated. It's when somebody decides to make you feel like you're crazy or you're detached from reality for basically observing and describing the horrible things they're doing to you.
Yes.
They make you feel like you're the problem or it's not really happening.
Yeah, Lina is the best. She's the one who's given us the right, like the facts.
We call them production assistants.
We call them hashtag Lina Facts.
Lina Facts.
Hashtag Lina Facts. Thanks, Lina. So yeah, Gaslight comes from the movie Gaslight from 1944 with Ingrid
Bergman.
Okay.
Yeah, come on now. That's a real talent. That's
okay.
You actually know.
So I want to show this
clip.
No. The article itself.
Oh yeah, the article, of course.
Yeah.
So we're not doing clip.
No, we have another clip, but not yet. Come on.
All right.
You want to find a way to talk about you in the moment?
I can. It's like not. I'm sitting right here.
Okay. So I have it right here. Don't worry. Sorry. This is live.
We are live.
Yeah. It's okay. So this is it. I have it. Okay.
Okay. Let's do it.
Okay.
Despacito. Come on.
Despacito. Well, this what the
English people know Despacito.
English people know Despacito.
Okay.
Gaslighting. This is the article we're talking about.
Yes.
We found this article and I think it's very, very interesting because let me make it bigger. Yes. This is the article of Rachel Sweet. And basically what she proposed is that gaslighting is way more complex than we think.
And it's not just between two people in a relationship. It can be between a person and their partners, their family, their community, their fucking social structure, all of it.
But the most important part is that there's a need of an imbalance of power between the people who are, the ones who gaslight and the victim, but also a social or a cultural network that can give validity to those prejudices.
Can promote it, allow it, and even enhance it.
Yes.
And stimulate, and also, most importantly, benefit from it.
Yes. So the idea is that, in order to be a real gaslighting, what you're using is like concept like motherhood.
Right.
Like motherhood is a concept that is root ideology in our culture to say women need to be mother and need to be good mothers.
Specific responsibilities.
Yeah.
If you're not doing X, you're not a good mother.
So basically, what you do is to tell the other one is you're not a good mother. You know what I mean? If the woman doesn't live in that network, in that culture, it will be not that much. You know what I mean?
Or not a good son.
Or not a good
father. Or not a good wife.
Are you talking about you?
I'm always talking about me. Can we talk about my mom?
Yeah, no.
No, we cannot.
Mom. But what we're trying to say is that basically the idea is the victim needs to live in a network when the culture itself tell them reinforce these ideas. So it's not just a psychological dynamics. It's also a psychosocial dynamics.
Like with Jim Crow laws, which were designed to essentially re-enslave black people who had been freed after the Civil War.
Yes.
These laws were petty and directed solely at impoverished black people just to create a system where they could be enslaved again.
Yes.
And that's reinforcing the notion that yes, you have freedom, but you don't.
Yes.
Yeah, you have your worth, but you don't. Yeah, you can vote, but you can't.
Yeah.
And you're crazy for thinking that you can't.
So in order to actually talk about gaslighting in a case or talking about gaslighting related to violence, one of the implications, of course, there's also a lot of implication. You need to address the context or the culture. You need to do some context analysis. And that's what we do when we investigate a crime. If the crime is like in San Diego or Los Angeles or Tamaulipas, you need to understand how Tamaulipas work, how Los Angeles work in terms of that type of, and you can do this for watching media and read the newspapers. There's a lot of reports about crimes. And
we're talking to people from there, obviously.
Yeah, of course, talking with people up there. But that's the most important part. You cannot talk about gaslighting only in the context of two people. You need to understand these other layers of the problem.
And there's another fun one we discovered this summer, working a case in Kansas involving some guys, a whole family of people from Guadalajara.
Yeah.
You have the Guadalajara culture in Spanish inside the whitest of the white culture in the United States.
Yes.
So it's not just those two separate cultures that you have to understand now a little bit. You got to understand how they interact with each other.
Yes.
In this case, it was the white police officers believing that there's a black suspect or believing that the black person.
Yeah, racism or sexism,
yeah.
or what we're talking. So we recommend to read this article and to integrate in how you talk about crime, how you talk about violence. Obviously, if it's useful, but I mean, if you're going to use it, use the psychosocial approach.
Yeah, not only how you talk about it, because talking is programming. It's how you think about it.
Yeah.
That's the biggest trick for me. And Aurelio you can see him, he makes fun of me about just about every aspect of the way that I behave. Because
just the egotistical part.
Which is every
But he's very egotistical, so he's most of the time.
Exactly. But that's my problem. My problem is I have a problem with the way, because of how I was raised, because of the context I was in, I have a very difficult time finding the right language to express, good thoughts.
So he's a victim.
Definitely not.
So he has an emotional trauma that allows him to see himself as a handsome person. That's the disability he has. So it's a disability.
My mom thinks I'm handsome.
That's what white people do. They take away victims' concept and use it for their own benefit to explain very basic conflict in life.
That's true.
So gaslighting is not about white people. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, definitely.
Gaslighting is about more people who live in vulnerability and have psychosocial disabilities and stuff like that. Conflict is not abuse. Conflict is not abuse. We're going to talk about that the next podcast, because most of the people who live in privilege believe that any conflict they have is abuse.
Not even conflict, discomfort. Any discomfort or the lack of immediate
like Wi-Fi and stuff like that.
Oh my God, if their Wi-Fi is not working, us white people, man.
Those white people.
Those white people. I mean, us white.
You're like 20% Mexican now.
20. It's like 21, but I'm charging.
Okay, so we're going to the next.
Let's do it. What's the next segment?
We have a next segment. You need to do it once and then a little bit.
Tease a little bit. You're so wise. You're an excellent filmmaker.
Yeah. So we want to give you a couple of recommendations. First, we're watching this documentary of, you can find it in HBO, it's Allen versus Farrow.
Oh my God.
We just watched the first episode and we're going to talk about that
I wasn't ready.
Yeah, so this is a very important documentary because can you talk about Woody Allen in American culture?
Well, I can talk about it from my experience. And my experience is that my father was one of the biggest Woody Allen fans that exists. And he would VCR recorded every one of his movies, and he would have me watch them with him over and over and over again. Yes. Even as I became an adult, Woody Allen was still making movies. And he is an icon. He represents New York culture to the world.
Yeah.
And his movies are the reason a lot of people come to New York, because they have these fantasies that come from these movies. He writes incredibly smart, complex characters and strong female leads, which is very rare.
Well, strong female leads. I'm not a film expert.
You really are, but
I saw Vicky Cristina Barcelona. That's the only suspicion he has for a Latino woman. So
Salma Hayek is.
I know.
Vicky Cristina was Penelope Cruz, right?
Penelope Cruz, yes.
Okay, sorry.
Penelope Cruz.
Sorry.
Are you confusing Salma Hayek?
Not at all.
I do that. I do that all the time. I get confused between, Amy Schumer and any other
white
person.
Woman.
Exactly. Sorry. And our colleague from Canada, and
Melody.
Any other white woman. But sorry.
Beautiful white woman.
So Woody Allen, he's been defended for so many people for so long.
I would not say defended, but basically.
No, defended.
Well, I guess
men defend this guy.
It's worse. I think it's worse than defend.
What's worse?
What's worse is actively participating in covering up his crime.
Yes.
That's what I think is worse.
Yes.
Defending him is one thing, because everybody deserves to be defended on some level.
Yes, exactly.
But actively participating in the crime by propagating the myth, propagating the lies, and participating in the gaslighting of Mia Farrow. Oh my fucking God. I wasn't ready.
Yes.
Emotionally, I was not ready last
We
night.
need to watch the whole documentary.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about next week. But I think it's well, you say that yesterday. It's going to be like it's going to be a groundbreaking thing.
Not just groundbreaking. It's the end of an era the end of my father's era of filmmaking and culture.
Yeah.
It's the end of the Don Draper era of treating women like garbage and trash and possessions. To take down someone like, it's easy to take down a Harvey Weinstein because he's just got money.
Yeah.
not anybody liked Harvey Weinstein.
Of course.
Everybody loves Woody Allen. That's the difference.
Okay. So we want to give you that recommendation so you can, if you have time, check it.
Yeah.
And also we want to recommend you to watch this other documentary that we watched last week.
Oh my God. Holy shit, I wasn't ready for this one either. Jesus Christ. Every time Aurelio says, we should watch this, I'm like, okay, fine, I'll take some culture.
We'll talk about Secrets of the Tribe.
Secrets of the Tribe is, if you need to watch it now. Stop, turn this podcast off and go watch this. It's on YouTube.
You can watch it.
You
can watch it in YouTube. You can watch it in Prime. You can watch it in HBO.
Yeah,
and subtitles.
It is not what you think it is.
No.
This is not, you're not ready. Change it. I can't believe it. I think, based on this film, anthropologists should be shut down from ever traveling, from ever leaving their university offices or classrooms. They should never be allowed to leave.
This is a very good documentary about
never.
colonialism. Just for context, this director is called José Padilla. He's from Brazil, and he directed the movie Tropa de Élite, or Elite Troop 1 and 2. And also, he's the one who produced the first 2 seasons of Narcos.
Yes, he did. He's
the
brilliant.
Pablo Escobar story.
He's brilliant. A brilliant filmmaker. I would also suggest, in terms of this, you got to watch Secrets of the Tribe. You got to watch it, because after watching that, it made me question everything except for one thing. For all my Trekkie colleagues out there, the prime directive rules. That it should be the prime directive always. Never interfere with another culture. Never interact, because we're trash people and we'll destroy them.
Yeah, and also shows how different. I mean, this guy is a fan of Michel Foucault, psychologist from France, and he studies about insanity and control devices. So that discourse is very into his documentary. He showed how the the vaccine industry do that to this town.
Oh my God!
The military.
So relevant to what's going on now.
So basically, what is very interesting. So we highly recommend this documentary to watch it, because I think we need to start talking about violence in these terms.
Cultural violence.
Cultural violence. And that's all for this week.
God, thank God.
This
is emotionally a lot for me. Can I just
we want to make better.
Do we have another intro we can play?
Yeah, sorry for my broken English.
No,
this is what I have.
No, his broken English is really good. I want to hear another one of your intros, because I feel like...
No, we're going to say goodbye with an intro.
We have an outro?
Let's call it an outro.
That's what the industry calls it. So
I know the industry. I know the industry. So thanks for your attention. Thanks for your time. Thanks for putting on us in this late.
I'm really sorry how late this is, but if you're anything like us, you have no life.
See ya.